What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to episode 197 of the Designated Players Podcast. We are here wrapping up the conference semifinals and doing a quick preview and prediction of the Eastern and Western Conference Finals, one game away from MLS Cup Final. I'm here with Connor. Connor, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, although it's a bit late.
It is. Unfortunately, there are other things I need to take care of, but you can see the Christmas lights nice and pretty. So that's all that matters. Pretty crazy weekend of MLS play. 3 of the 4 games decided by 1 goal, really all 4 of them. And then a Cucho Hernandez half field goal in the 118th minute to send Columbus on. Everything close, everything to play for. I think we went half and half in predictions. You got 2, I got 2. So no real needle movers there, and I think my chances to catch you are about done until we move on to we carry it over to next year until I take the lead, and then we start fresh. But a quick recap here: Columbus, as we mentioned, beating Orlando 2-0 with a Rodrigo Schlegel red card, forcing it to extra time, and Columbus scoring 2 to put themselves through. Cincinnati knocked off Philly 1-0 on one of the most controversial goals of the weekend. Houston knocked off Sporting Kansas City 1-0, also with a controversial play in a handball on the line by a Houston center back. And then finally, Seattle lost to LAFC 1-0 on a Denny Bouanga finish that was just, when you think about how Denny Bouanga plays, it was picture perfect, that goal, to describe his play. We will dive into those games, talk a little bit about them, and then we will preview Eastern Conference. Hell is Real on Saturday, December 2nd at 6 p.m. and the Western Conference, LAFC versus Houston Dynamo at 9:30. But before we do any of it, we got to talk about Scarf of the Week, don't we?
We do.
As always, I turn it over to you first, friend.
I think you'll be excited about this one.
Ooh, is it Red Bull?
It is Houston.
Oh, they're gonna bring out the 2024 MLS Cup champs scarf.
Nope.
Not yet. You're gonna wait.
It's not one of my favorite scars, honestly. I think the design of it is a bit poor. Kind of like their chances of making this MLS Cup final.
You are terrible. I've also got an MLS Cup finalist on my neck, just like you do. I've got the Columbus Crew with the OG logo. Big fan of this scarf. I think it's very, very pretty.
Yes, especially with the OG logo.
Yeah, it makes it so much better. And their new logo isn't bad, but that's peak right there.
Yep.
All right, let's just jump right into this really quick. How many games did you watch this weekend?
I don't know.
I'll take that as 0. So Orlando City, Columbus, a very, very cagey affair, with Orlando seeing red in the 77th minute to Rodrigo Schlegel, one of the more clear-cut calls of the weekend, if we had to pick, break them all down, as Instant Replay did. Very good segment on Instant Replay. They were able to get it to extra time, and then super sub Christian Ramirez right on the stroke of the start of the first extra time period put it away. Cucho Hernandez finishes it with a half-field lob attempt, really, as Pedro Gallese was in no man's land, as well as some monster saves from Patrick Schulte, cementing his spot in that goal and really proving well why they sent Eli Room out the door. He was on fire. He must have made 4 or 5 saves that I thought were going in, and he was up to the task.
Is that my cue to jump in on my thoughts on the game?
I'll be honest, I didn't really know how to transition to you because I know you didn't watch it, so I wasn't quite sure.
That doesn't mean I can't talk about it.
All right, talk about it then.
So I don't want to spoil too much about what we'll talk about later, but man, Columbus looked like a tough team to beat right now. I know we talk a lot about MLS Cup playoffs really being about a team with the right momentum at the right time. I don't necessarily think Columbus, and I mean, it showed it in regular season. I don't think they are the best team in the league. Granted, there can definitely be a conversation that they are, but man, this team feels like they are on full swing momentum at the right time. Like it's giving shades of like Seattle, like you were talking about.
That was the most millennial thing I've ever heard you say. It's
Because I
giving
said it's giving.
Seattle. It's
Sorry,
giving Seattle.
I didn't mean to
God,
make it sound
you're
like that.
canceled. You're canceled. I'm doing this solo. Anyways,
But yes, it feels like they're finding their rhythm at the right time here, and I mean their attack I think is their biggest strong suit. If they're going to beat Cincinnati and make a run at the cup, it's going to be through their attack. Not that their defense. I mean they shut out Orlando in 120 minutes, so defense did their job in that game, but that attack I think is their bread and butter. And I will take a chance because I'm an Atlanta fan, and I think I was talking too much praise towards Orlando last time. I'm going to take a chance to dunk on them a little bit here. I think Pedro Gallese is overrated.
wow, that's not the right way to go about that. You could have
Yeah,
said anything of any other player on the field, and that is the wrong way to do
no, no, no. And I'm not even saying that necessarily he was at fault for this game, but man, I don't know. I'm not a fan.
it.
I mean,
What is your what's your rationale for that? Like is I don't think you have any actual proof to that. You didn't watch the game, so you didn't watch him play.
I'm not saying that he's bad in that particular game, but I'm not even saying he's bad overall. He's a good keeper, but I feel like people make him out to be like a top 5 keeper in the league. But I mean, take a look at our favorite stat. We did
I
30
literally
stat.
just pulling that up.
Yeah, of course I am,
Knew
because I
that's
think
where
he
you were pulling this
benefits from
from.
a really strong defense.
He's
Robin
got
Jansen, Antonio
he's got
Carlos
an
are
average
fantastic.
PSXG plus minus, so he can't
It's
be
like
good. Oh my goodness.
he's 18th. He's behind Eloy Room, Dane, Tyler Miller. Daniel passed him in one season.
Oh
I just think
my god.
that he has a strong defense in front of him, and a tactic that benefits a strong defense where he doesn't concede a lot of goals, and he comes up with a couple of massive saves that make the highlight reels, and then I feel like people think he's like top 5 in the league, but I just don't think that he is.
He was tied for 14th. What are you talking about?
Tied for 14th what?
In PSXG this season.
Yeah, in this season, I'm talking about all time.
All time
He's
he was
18th.
oh my goodness.
What?
He was better last year than he was this year.
What does that have to do with anything?
I'm done with you. It's too late.
I mean, 14th in it this season. That's like average. That's
14th,
literally
but he was
about
plus
bang average.
1.4. Plus 1.4. He was better than Steve Clark, who's in the conference semifinals right now. Better than Takaoka in Vancouver. Better than Yarborough, who apparently they're trying to bring back. Stupid Colorado. Better than Roman Celentano, who everybody's calling is a top 3 goalkeeper in the league.
Not me. I'm not calling him that.
Better than Carlos Cornell, who is the best goalkeeper in the league.
Oh God, here we go.
What are we talking about here?
Credibility ruined. He called Carlos Cornell the best goalkeeper in the league.
I think that's absurd.
Yes, because I know you like Gallese.
There's lots of things that you can go in on Orlando, and one of them that I would have sat here and just said go right ahead is their play under Oscar Pereira. Oscar Pereira has been very, very conservative over the last couple of years, playing for the 0-1, the 1-2, any sort of result that is in his favor without being chaotic. He likes to bunker in. He likes to absorb pressure. He likes to counter with his attack. And it's not very pretty. It's not like watching a Seattle or an LAFC or even a Columbus. Columbus looked great with the ball in this game. That's something that you could have gone in and said, yeah, that hurt them because you can only absorb for so much and without getting a bunch of, and I think they got robbed on a couple chances. Like I said, Schulte came up massive. The XG, if I can find it really quick, and I know I won't now that I'm looking for it quickly.
see if I can find it
Yeah,
too.
there it is. Their
I got
XG 2.4 to 1.2. So Orlando deserved a goal in the game. They didn't deserve to win, but they deserved a goal in the game. And Schulte did not. That being said, they only got 3 shots on target. So 1.2 XG out of 3 shots is kind of crazy. But the object of this whole thing is they've always been a very conservative. Like you don't look at an Orlando team and think, oh my God, they're winning every game, 4-3. Any win that they pick up is always going to be close. And that hurt them because they didn't have the fire. But, when they get into positions where they can't score, that's going to hurt them because they're not generating 15 chances to score 2. They're generating 3 chances and scoring none. And that's a roll of the dice that you take as a manager and the way that you see your team. And it hurt them there. And I think that would have been way more fair than saying, oh man, you know what I think? One of the best goalkeepers over the last 5 years in this league, overrated, bum.
You're just saying that because you like him.
No, I'm
It
saying
had
that
nothing
because
to
you
do
don't
with the
have any.
game.
You have
I
no
just wanted my
factual
chance.
basis outside of one stat.
Yeah, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, but in my opinion, it is probably the biggest indicator on a sole performance of a goalkeeper. You can look at clean sheets all you want, but there's 10 other guys on the field contributing to clean sheets.
They only had 9 wins, Orlando, in this season with more than 1 goal. A lot of their games, even in losses, like their losses as well, were all within 1 goal. Just taking a quick look here. Yeah, most of what I'm looking at here is within 1 goal, a tie, what have you. But it's a very reserved style of play, and it worked. It got them to second place in the excuse me, got them to second place in the East. Like it is a system that worked in league play. But does the conservative counterattack work in playoffs against good teams? I think it's a 50-50 shot, and that's what the playoffs are. And I think they just came up short. Like I said, they pushed them to extra time, and then playing a man down, they got hurt. If they're a man up, do they get through this? Maybe. But then again, you've also got a Columbus team with one of the best attacks in the league. So
yeah, no, I think talking about the tactic is definitely a big point of discussion. I think to your point, the way that they go, the more conservative approach really is a good long-term play, like across a full season. Hence the reason why they finished second in the standings. But I think when it comes to playoffs, you got to be more aggressive than that. I mean, if you're going to sit back and absorb pressure from this Columbus attack all day, you're going to get burned. You can't absorb the pressure of Cucho and Diego Rossi, Aiden Morris, Darlington Nagbe, Matan. I mean, you're going to crack eventually.
We'll finish this here by saying Orlando has given up the second least amount of goals in the conference, level with Red Bull and level with Cincinnati, who won the Shield. So, less than 40 goals in the season is very impressive, and you don't know ball.
I said exactly about this. I said there's 10 other people on the field contributing to clean sheets.
Yeah, I didn't ask. We'll move on then to the other Eastern Conference game, Cincinnati versus Philadelphia. Did you see the goal?
Yes.
What are your thoughts?
I feel like it was tougher than people were giving it credit for on Twitter. Granted, Twitter should not be used as like the official opinion base of everybody, but I think he was offside, but I think it was tougher than people are giving it credit for. I know I was catching up on a lot of your tweets and just seeing general reaction from everybody. And I know there's that guy. I wish I had his app right now. Maybe you remember
Offside
it.
modeling.
Yeah, offside modeling. Who put that together, and I think he came to the conclusion that he was offside, but it was like a matter of 3 inches. Like it was super tight. And I feel like people were just dead set on like this is blatantly offside. It's clear and obvious offside when I think it was a tougher call than people are giving credit for. But at the end of the day, I do still think that it was the wrong call. And I think maybe you could talk about it a little bit more, but I remember seeing from your tweets that like they didn't even have him go check.
Correct. Yeah, I guess I'll explain that. So my first instinct, along with everybody's, was, "Holy crap, he's a yard and a half offside. How did they miss that?" Then I calmed down and I recognized that the foot of Julian Carranza was deeper than his body, which isn't usually the case when the ball is going in that direction, right? You're usually moving with your body and your feet are pushing you this way. But Carranza was doing the opposite. So his foot is deeper. Ian Murphy is ahead of him. However, in the way that the laws are written, where you need clear and obvious error to overturn, I think they made the right call. My issue is, and I've said this to a lot of people online and in person, at Alfred, I'm in my office and people walking by, and I'm like, I need to tell you why this is wrong. And they, of course, knew, of course, what I was talking about, because everybody watches the MLS Cup playoffs. I have watched countless games where that same exact camera angle was used to overturn calls tighter than that. They call the ref over to the monitor. Hey, we think we got it. Okay, let's take it off and we keep playing. And it's a 30-second check. This one, by the eye test, looked even farther off. And they didn't even call him to say, hey, we think that there might be an error here. Let's call you to the monitor and talk about it. So you're not just standing there looking like a, little kid in a candy shop. Like, okay, I'm ready for my candy. Like, let's talk about it at the monitor so you're not just standing there with the camera on you. I think that the way they went about it was wrong and that it wasn't consistent enough with the way that MLS has done it this season. Like I mentioned, I think I went back through Offside Modeling's tweet and there was a call on, I think it was Bryce Duke in Montreal that was given as a goal and called back for offside, and it was like 1.25 inches, like when he did his model. But they called it back in record time. And now we're in a playoff game in the 96th minute that decides who goes to a game outside of the final game. And you're just like, no, we're gonna let it stand. Like, I think the approach was wrong. Do I think and with the way the laws are written, do I think they got to the right decision? Yes. However, I think the approach to get there was wrong, and that's why, from the outside looking in, this is a bad look for Pro, for VAR, and for MLS.
Is that how long have you been waiting to make that speech on VAR?
None actually. This is just because you brought it up. Like, if I asked you about it and then you brought up the whole like offside modeling thing. I mean, I tweeted it out. Like, people, more people read our Twitter than listen to our podcast. So I'm not super thrilled to make that speech in front of all 20 people who listen to the podcast. But the question I'll ask you before we move on to the West: does MLS need to adopt the line system?
The line system? Do they not use the lines?
No, like in the Prem.
I feel like no matter what they do, people will be unhappy. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just kind of the nature of it. Maybe that's just spending too much time looking on Twitter. But I feel like even with the Prem, with the lines, people are like, oh my God, like we're talking about 2 pixels between the two lines and we're calling them offside and whatever, blah, blah, blah. The game's gone. Like, it's ruined. So I feel like no matter what you do, you'll never be able to make everybody happy.
Correct. I agree
I
with you.
don't, I'm really not dead set on either way, but uh, I would say if I had to lean more towards one way, I would say no lines. I just think you keep it a little bit more in the flow of the game, I guess I'll say, rather than having to like stop everything for 5 minutes while people draw lines to try to figure out if this guy's like toenail is in front of this other person. So I would say I'd rather keep it a little bit more like, okay, it looks pretty close. Like let's just like stick with the call on the field.
I agree with you. I like that it is more of a judgment call in terms of what was the call on the field. Is it a clear and obvious error? No, let's move on. Because you're right, the flow of the game's great. It pushes people on and um, makes it really um, it makes it flow better. You're right. Again, I'll go to the way that the laws are written. Offside isn't a judgment call. Offside is a yes or a no. So for the people who are out there saying, yeah, this needs to be a line, line thing. If he's off, he's off. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I don't necessarily disagree with it because the way the law is written, you're onside or you're offside. It's not a judgment. It isn't a yes or a no. You then can come back and say, oh, well, it's all about how many frames per second. Maybe we miss exactly when the ball is kicked and you might not know exactly and whatever. No matter what way you do it, you're going to have gray areas and whatever. But I am also a fan of just letting it go in the flow of the play. If it's egregiously bad, fix it. If it's close enough, let's play. That's just me.
Yep.
Cool.
I'm right there on the same page with you.
Yay, go team.
Yeah, it's about time we're on the same page about something.
Let's get on the same page about my boys Benny Ball and Houston Dynamo then. Because you doubted them and they came up a massive with a little bit of cheating. But that's okay. The biggest play in this game, of course, is right after Houston scored their goal. They come up the field, and I believe it was Daniel Shallowy having the shot. Carried away by Steve Clark, followed up. The center back, I'm going to butcher this name.
The Ukrainian sounding one.
Yes. Sviacic. Yikes. I'm going to try it one more time with the name actually pulled up in front of me. It is Sviatchenko. Sorry, Sviatchenko. He gets himself on the line. He sits there, and you can see his arms go from here down towards his side, and the ball from the reverse angle hits his arm, bounces it back, and is cleared off the line. Andrew Wiebe did a good job in extra time. Not extra time, sorry, instant replay, talking about this play. There was a relatively good angle. First of all, did you see it?
I didn't. No.
Okay. Look it up right now while we're talking. So I want your judgment on it. There's a very good angle from the back line. You can look it up, instant replay. It's a second clip. I think it's a really good angle from the reverse side that shows the ball hitting his arm, the arm bouncing back, and the only part of the body that moves, by the way, is his arm. And then the ball is cleared off the line. I think there's enough there for a handball to be given. However, Wiebe did make a good point saying that in the VAR shoes, there is no clear and obvious proof that the ball did not hit off of the chest first and into the hand, which, according to the way the laws are written, again, we're going back to the way the laws are written, if it comes off your body first, then your hand, it's unintentional and you play on. I think it still should have been given as a penalty. And if it was a penalty, it should have been a red card as well, because clear denial of a goal scoring opportunity. As a referee with VAR, that's the call I would have given. I would have suggested it for on-field review. However, it was not given. Houston was able to hold strong, defend against the Sporting KC attack, and come out with the result. Connor, have you seen the clip?
I'm trying to find it.
Okay. I'll just run through some stats there because at the end of the day, Houston did really dominate possession. They had 4 shots on goal each. The XG, as we move on here, where are my advanced stats? There they are. The XG in here, 1.3 to 0.9, so it was a relatively even game. But Houston was able to hold out. Steve Clark, again, coming up big in various opportunities to keep SKC off the board, including the first save before the ball got cleared off the line. I don't know if Houston was necessarily deserving of it, but I think SKC was not, if that makes any sense. Like, they didn't do enough to me to earn that result in a different way. However, I do think they were beaten by the referee. I think I've waffled enough. Do you have the clip? Have you seen it?
Can't find it.
My God, how bad are you at the internet?
I found instant replay on the MLS site, but the latest video was from round 1, match
Just go
2.
to YouTube. Gosh. Golly me.
Golly me.
And we're gonna put an interlude here. Connor's gonna edit some nice elevator music as he tries to find this.
Finally, I found the video.
Would have been better is if you actually watched the games like you were supposed to. Don't you know this is a professional podcast? You're supposed to be prepared for this stuff. No response. Wow.
Watching. Intently watching. I mean, on first look at that, it totally seems like a handball.
Which, did you see the reverse angle yet?
Not yet.
The reverse angle will tell it to you. Because at first, when I watched it, I wasn't sure. I did actually shout in my room. I was like, handball. And then I watched it back on replay. The replay wasn't clear and obvious until they went to the reverse angle because the camera was moving too quickly. So it was all blurred. But that reverse angle tells you all you need to know, in my opinion. He moves up to the monitor to see it.
I mean, it's definitely a weird one because I feel like their defenders are always told to keep their arms by their side.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it is by his side, but I do feel like he is making himself bigger here.
The way, like, so this is where common sense comes into it for me. If his arm is not there, does the ball go in the goal? Yes. So he used his arm to deny a goal, regardless of if it's out here, up here, whatever, right? Like, the only way I could see it going is if he's here. Like, if his arms are crossed and it hits him here, that's one thing. But if your arms are out towards your side, you are unnaturally bigger than the frame of your body. I think it's a handball. I think it's a penalty, and I think it's a red card. And I think SKC were hard done by it. But that's the way the cookie crumbles, and that's why we always want two-legged series instead of these silly one-offs, because you can recover from a bad call.
That's a good point. Push your agenda.
Peter Vermees with the GIF of the year. I don't know if you've seen that either.
It was probably in that video, but I already closed it.
He's zoomed in on as he's talking to the referee, and you see him mouth the words very clearly. You don't think that's a handball? You're kidding. F off. And he waves, but it's clear as day. He doesn't, no blurring, no nothing. So it's been clipped and turned into a GIF, and it'll be used often. I'm hoping you watched like the Seattle LA game.
Yeah,
I'm kind of waffling.
course.
I'm kind of waffling here, and I need you to contribute
You're
something.
always waffling. It doesn't really change anything.
Well, yeah, that's what happens when I'm the only one who puts any work into this podcast. Denny Bouanga in the 30th minute scores the goal. Maxime Crepeau plays hero, and Seattle end the Nico Ladero age in the conference semifinals. I'll let you start because I've started everything. Tell me what you want to tell me.
I feel like this is a perfect example of how important it is for your star players to show up in the playoffs. Because honestly, it does feel like, and I think I said this previously in episodes too, but it feels like Denny Bouanga is carrying this team, and I understand that that's not the case because other players are stepping up big time. Exactly like you said, Crepeau, massive game in that Seattle game, but this dude is absolutely balling out for this team, and it was always going to be tough to play away at Seattle. We know like Seattle has a great atmosphere at their games. It was always going to be tough. They were going to be amped up by the fans there, but I mean, credit to them. They played their game. They got their goal that they needed from their big time star player, and then they sat in and got the job done defensively. Um, XG wise, it wasn't like as crazy as I would have originally thought it to be. I'm seeing like 1.3 for Seattle, and zero point 0.4 for LAFC. So XG definitely favors Seattle, but I don't even think you needed to look at XG to kind of figure that out. I mean, Seattle had 8 shots on target and 69% of the ball. So I think it was clear that Seattle were throwing everything they could, try to get that goal that they needed, and LAFC were just sitting back and defending, in that typical style that I feel like you were talking about in the earlier rounds, where teams would try to just sit in and get the penalties. Obviously, this case they had their goal already, so sit in and just try to make it through the 90 minutes, and they were able to do that. Um, yeah, I don't know. I like this LAFC team. I think their experience from their run last year. They're still a really strong team talent wise on paper. I think they're definitely a threat.
Yeah, I mean, personally, my opinion, Seattle got FIFA. Right, this is the type of game you play in FIFA where you batter, and end up getting nothing. Right, they, I think, were hard done by. Right, this is a game where, as I mentioned, Maxime Crepeau had the game of his life outside of MLS Cup last year, and they created a ton of chances. They didn't start Ladero. They didn't start Rui Diaz. They didn't start a lot of the players that haven't been starting in general. So it's not like it was like, oh my goodness, how are they going to, because they've done it before without him.
Mm.
But as I mentioned at the beginning of the season, and now here is, you're seeing this age out of players, right? Nico Ladero, one of the greatest signings in MLS history, has wrapped up his time here. Rui Diaz is only getting 30 minutes a game. Joao Paulo is one of the best D mids in the league, no question. But running out of time on the wrong side of 30, as you like to say.
Nice.
Don't worry, I
Good
snuck it
getting
in
in
there
there.
for you. Um, and listen, they've got people in the pipeline. Like, don't get me wrong, Leo Chu looks all the parts of somebody who can be very special. Jackson Reagan has filled into that role really nicely. Stephen Fry is coming back, and he was fine except for the one wonder goal out of Denny Bouanga. But I think it's a changing of the times here in Seattle, and this is not to take anything away from LAFC, by the way. I mean, a phenomenal showing from their guys. Chiellini was nothing short of fantastic again. I know he's 39 years old now, but he is using his brain and his soccer knowledge to take this team to the next level. Hollingshead and Palacios are so good on the outside. They've got a really nice deep bench, in terms of MLS teams. And Vela's still doing what Vela does. Oliveira is a great addition. Um, Bogusz and Steve Buke are also really good additions. they are in the process, LAFC are, of creating a dynasty, really. No, to not to sugarcoat it. You're looking at a team that's been to the CONCACAF Champions League final 2 of the last 3 years. You're looking at a team that's been in the conference semifinals, or I mean, I'm sorry, conference finals, I think 2 of the last 3 years. It's it's looking like this is LAFC's conference to take over now, especially when it comes to playoffs, kind of like Seattle was a few years ago. But it does lead me to question what's next for Seattle. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, where you think they need to go now that Mr. Ladero is gone.
I mean, they'll be fine. Like you said, they already kind of transitioned to this point where Ladera and Rui Diaz are coming off the bench, not as much of a factor anymore. And I think the team will be in a good shape to kind of fill in those holes. Like I think that team is in need of a striker. I don't think Jordan Morris at striker is the answer, but I think the rest of the field, I mean, they look great. Alex and Christian Roldan are always going to be really solid pieces there. Josh Atencio in the midfield, along a bunch of other guys. I know they have a ton of young guys in that midfield, so you could rotate between any of them. Whoever is on their game probably gets the spot. And then Jackson Reagan and EA Mars, a phenomenal center back pairing. Stefan Fry can probably go for another like 10 years. Um, Nuhu as well. One of arguably a top 5 left back in the league. And then Rusnak as well. I mean, he's a guy who's, even before his time with Seattle, was one of the best attacking players in the entire league. So they're totally going to be fine, even without Ladero and Rui Diaz. And I think, honestly, I think they've done a really good job of managing that transition and not just going into a situation like, oh, we were just talking about a team
New
that
York
has
City.
like a, no, not exactly New York City. I'm trying to think of like, I feel like we were just talking about a team recently where, oh, maybe Portland. Portland was the one I was thinking of, where a lot of like they had a really good core group of guys and then they kind of aged. And I feel like Portland hasn't done the best job of kind of transitioning that to the next era of Portland. And now like a bunch of the older guys are on really, they're still on big contracts and designated player contracts and getting injured and not really playing much. But
Mm-hmm.
I think Seattle did a really great job of transitioning this. So I think they will be fine. I think they did a really good job.
Nice. I think it's a fair point. I don't disagree with you there. Um, but I do kind of want to transition here into the next step. So, conference finals coming up on Saturday. You got Cincinnati, Columbus. Hell is real in Cincinnati. LAFC taking on Houston in BMO Stadium. Hell is real is one of the premier rivalries in this league as since it started. I mean, both sets of fan bases are tied into it. They are all about the just the energy that they bring and the atmosphere. That's the word I'm looking for. The atmosphere that they bring against each other is nothing short of fantastic. In every MLS or yeah, we'll just do MLS. Um, it seems for the most part that Columbus has had the upper hand. Only twice has Cincinnati beaten them in MLS or MLS's back play. There are 2 ties in there, but the rest has gone to Columbus, and for the most part by multiple goals. Last one was 3-0 in week 27 of this year, 3-2 in week 14 of this year to Cincinnati. High scoring, high energy. Tell me, what's the outcome?
So I'll just say right off the bat that I am going with Columbus here. I know I talked about their momentum before. I think that's going to continue to carry them here. I haven't felt great watching FCC in the playoffs so far. I feel like there's been a number of times where they've looked a bit shaky and vulnerable. And I think Columbus is going to jump all over that, especially in a rivalry game. Head to head this year, I know you were talking about a bit of their head to head overall in history, but one of those few FCC wins was at home this year, 3-2 against Columbus. But I will say that this was pretty early in the year, and I think we're looking at a completely different Columbus now. Even if a lot of the names haven't changed necessarily, I still think we're looking at a different Columbus from when they played each other there. When Columbus was at home, they stomped them 3-0. So Columbus knows how to beat them. I think FCC looks a little bit vulnerable in the playoffs. And I mean, Columbus feels like a train with no brakes at this point. I think if FCC want to beat Columbus, they need to get more out of their strikers because they have not been great this playoff so far. Like I want to. I just want to see before I. Yeah, so definitely need to get more out of Brandon Vasquez. I think he's been too quiet in this playoff series. Same with Don Badji or Bupenza, whoever is playing up top with Vasquez, but they need to get more out of them. Lucci is going to do Lucci things no matter what. But he needs some help. And I think you could do it against Columbus. I mean, I believe they play a back three with Amundsen, Rudy Camacho, and Steven Moreira. So that's 2 out of the 3 of their back three that aren't natural center backs. So I feel like you can take advantage of that and try to beat them there. I mean, Atlanta did it. Granted, that they did it when they were home, but I mean, Atlanta still shipped like I think 6 goals past Columbus across the 3 games. So you could definitely exploit them in the defense. And if they're going to do that, it's got to come through their strikers, some combination of Bupenza, Vasquez, or Baji.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things, the biggest additions from the 3-2 game that they played and the 3-0 game, Rudy Camacho joined the team. And that's not an insignificant addition. You're basically replacing Philip Quinton, who I believe excuse me. Yeah, he's played 12 times this year and is 24-year-old. Yeah, he joined from Columbus 2 this year. It's a 22-year-old rookie with an experienced MLS center back. And Viacia was also playing in that left center back role, which is now taken up by Sean Zawatsky, who stepped in and done very, very well, as well as Steven Moreira being more of a out and out guy in that role there. It's a different look. It is a more competent back line, and they all know how to play with each other. Patrick Schulte is coming to his own. And I got to be honest with you, I always find it hard to bet against Darlington Nagbe in the MLS Cup playoffs, man. I don't know anybody who would do that. Malte Abmanson as well. It's another guy I forgot to mention who has been fantastic. And then this guy, Diego Rossi, who's stepped in for Zelarayan very well. Aiden Morris has come into his own. It
Named like
is
half the lineup already.
well, and that's the thing. It's like anytime you look there, Alexander Matan, right, is somebody who we didn't look at all. And he has blown up this year in that, attacking right mid role.
Mm-hmm.
FCC have their strengths, but here's the kicker for me. We don't know if Matt Miazga will be back for this game. Matt Miazga is still on suspension review. They struggled last with Philadelphia, trying to contain that attacking 3 with Carranza, Ura, and Gazdag, who, I'll be honest with you, I don't think are anywhere near the front 3 that Columbus has. Put it that way.
Yeah.
Oh,
sorry. Go ahead.
No, yeah, sorry. I just want to say I am going with Columbus here as well. I think the matchup is just better, especially if they have to play Alvis Powell as a center back again, with Miazga being out. I think that front 3 tears them apart, especially if it's a 3v3 out there and they're looking to counter. I think Cucho is just unguardable. And like you mentioned, FC Cincinnati strikers are falling kind of quiet at the wrong time. So agree with you there. I'll go Columbus.
Yeah, I think the only thing I wanted to add there was I think even more of a benefit for Columbus in this matchup is how strong. Like I think even if Miazga's there with Mosquera and they go to a back four, I think that, or even if they stay with the back five, the fact that Columbus are so good on the wings with Diego Rossi and Matan, I think that's going to cause nightmares for Barrial and Gaddis or whoever is out on the flanks for them. Uh, it may be even to the point where it's going to force them. Let's just say they're in a five in the back, because I think that's how they lined up against Philly. Force them to pull Powell or Murphy a bit wider, and then leaves Mosquera to have to deal with Cucho 1-on-1, which is not a spot I would want to be in that case. But yeah, I mean it's rare in this league. I know we talk about it a lot about how the winger depth in MLS is pretty weak. So I think it's pretty rare to see a team with really strong wingers, and I feel like FCC is going to hurt from that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So we both have Columbus going through. Will we be 2 for 2 in predicting the final game? It's LAFC hosting Houston for a spot in the MLS Cup Finals. No explanation. Tell me right now who wins the game.
LAFC.
Now tell me why.
I think this team is running through Denny Buwanga right now, and I don't see any team in this league at the moment that is capable of stopping him. I think having the home game is going to be a massive advantage for them as well. They've been very good at home this year, and Houston has been very poor on the road. And like I said, LAFC are experienced. They know they did this last year. They did it even a step further in the final. So they know what this pressure situation is like. They know how to get it done. Whereas Houston, I think this is probably pretty new for a lot of them to be in a spot like this. So, I mean, to me, all the signs are pointing towards LAFC, and that's who I had originally as well. So I'm sticking with that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I'm picking LAFC here. In their last 10 MLS games, I'm going to take away the Tigres Campeones Cup final. I don't even know what that was. One loss. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wins with, goodness me, 4, 9, 13, with 20 goals scored in those 6 wins and only 7 goals conceded. They're deep. They've got a ton of talent anywhere you look. I look at Houston's lineup and I'm not sold. I'll be honest with you. I watched Houston relatively closely. Um, their center back, Mikael, however you'd like to pronounce that, not sold on him. I'm not thrilled with the way that he plays. I think he's a bit lazy in the air. I think he's a bit slow to challenge and step when he's supposed to. And you can't do that against Vela, Buanga, and whoever the heck they want to put on the other side. I think Herrera and Archer do a really good job with Carrasquilla and Bassi in front. I think Quinones is a really, really fun attacking player. Not sold as Corey Baird as a number 9. I'm not sure that he can lead the line against a back line like this. I think a lot of it's going to have to come from the Bassi, Carrasquilla, Quinones, if it's going to come at all. But I think they're going to do so much defending in this game that you're not going to see a lot of impact from those guys. And then you look at their bench, and I don't see a ton of impact. I mean, Ivan Franco might be able to do it, but he hasn't really been great since joining on loan this year. And that's really it. They don't have a ton of attacking options to chase a game if they have to. Their striker off the bench is Ibrahim Aliou or Thor Olafsson, and Thor is a second year guy, I believe, with Ibrahim Aliou being a new signing from Lokomotiva in April. He's played 3 times this year in the playoffs, and he's got 3 goals, 2 assists in 24 games for Houston. So, he's the next guy up, but is that enough to break down an LAFC side that's got one of the best, one of the best center back pairings right now in a brilliant Giorgio Chiellini, a very strong Jesus Murillo, and then off the bench, one of the best USMNT eligible center backs in Aaron Long.
You said it, not me.
No, but for real, right? It's Aaron Long, it's Daniil Maldonado, it's Sergi Palencia at right back if they need to tie it up. In the attack, right? You're looking at Mario Gonzalez, you're looking at Stipe Biu, Mateus Bogusz. Christian Oliveira has been fantastic. Carlos Vela is always fantastic. Denny Bouanga is unstoppable right now. Midfield of Illy Sanchez. Kellen Acosta for some reason at center midfield instead of left back. Why? I don't know. I think this is overwhelmingly an LAFC game. Do I think LAFC blows them out of the water? No, because the playoffs. I don't think that happens here. But I do think that they put the majority of the game in Houston's half, and Houston struggles to counter. So I'm going to go LAFC here as well.
Yeah, I mean, I may catch some slack for saying this, but I feel like Houston are very lucky to be even in this game right now in the conference finals. I mean, they barely snuck past RSL. They got a fortunate no call in the SKC game. I feel like, however, if they manage to beat LAFC here, they will have deserved to beat LAFC because everything is pointing in LAFC's favor. But I don't see that happening. And to be honest with you, I really hope it doesn't, because I think an LAFC Columbus MLS Cup final would be that would be fantastic.
LAFC versus anybody in the final. I think FCC would also be a fun one.
Though I think Columbus would be.
I think Columbus would be more fun. Agreed.
It would be like 5-4 in that game.
Yeah. Houston's punching above their weight. I think they know it. I think their fans know it. What I will say is this run that they've been on has done miles to repair the team fan interaction relationship they've kind of severed over the last few years, missing the playoffs for 4 straight years without putting a ton of investment in. You could see what Red Bull did. It's the same thing, but way worse. Houston was bottom of the league this year in attendance, but that game against Kansas City was rocking. They were having the time of their life. They were loving everything that they saw on the field from the players, from the coaching staff. You could tell that there was this spark reignited in that group of fans that wasn't there this season. I think they averaged maybe 15,000 a game, which is better than, what we would expect from low MLS teams, right? We're raising the floor. But a team like Houston, who is playing fun soccer, Ben Olsen's got them doing a good thing, punching above their weight. They know that there's still a little bit more to do. So I don't think anybody would be upset with an exit here, so long as the ownership reinvests after. That's my 2 cents there.
Your 2 cents.
Yeah. LAFC Houston predicted final. Let's go early. No, I'm sorry, not LAFC Houston. LAFC Columbus predicted final from the 2 of us. Let's go for some fun. Who wins?
The fans.
Great answer.
Honestly, I would be so stoked to see that final. I mean, Bouanga and Vela against Rossi and Cucho Hernandez. Hook it to my veins. It's amazing.
Yeah,
Nagby against Kellen Acosta. Oh my God, that would be so awesome. I think I like. Oh, who would host in that game? I guess
Columbus would host.
Columbus would host?
Yep. Because they were higher on the Supporters Shield standings, if I remember correctly.
Gotcha.
Anybody. So I think they said that the MLS Cup runs through Ohio. Yeah, because Columbus was 3rd in the standings, LAFC 8th, Cincinnati in 1st, of course, and Houston in 9th. So West Coast has to travel.
Got it. I'm leaning towards Columbus, but man, I find it so hard to bet against LAFC. And my original bet was that LAFC would win. That's what's in my bracket.
Okay.
But man, I'm going slightly more Columbus here. I think Columbus feels like the more well-rounded team, I guess, at the moment.
I'm really glad you did that because for moral reasons, after 2008, am not allowed to pick Columbus in that game. So I'm going LAFC.
You can't just have beef with every team in the league.
So fun fact, my friend asked me like after the Red Bulls lost, like, who are we supporting? And I said we couldn't support anybody in the East because we have beef with all of them.
You got to get over it. Build a bridge.
No, I will not. I will not. So, well, look at it, right? So, FCC knocked us out, right? So, obviously, we're not cheering for the people who knocked us out.
That's fine. I get that. That's
right. Philadelphia in 2023. I'm sorry, 2021. We were up 3-1. We lost 4-3. Absolutely.
2021.
Absolutely not. Orlando, I could have pulled for, and then Columbus. I wasn't going to do that to Columbus. If
Columbus was 2008. You said it was 2008.
But they took away the cup. They took away the cup. This wasn't just like, oh, Columbus beat us in a random game in July. No, they beat us in the cup. All this you have no cup garbage would be gone if 2008 didn't happen. If Nashville got through, sure. I don't have any beef with Nashville. I wish Dax would win everything.
Of course.
If Atlanta got through,
Red Bull.
If Atlanta got through, no way. 2018. See ya. You're done.
You're gonna have a year for every team at some point. Just wait. Nashville's time is coming.
New England's got something for us. It's probably way deep in the past. Oh wait, no. New England was 2013, I think.
Yeah, of course. No, I remember New England. You came to my house. It was like one of the first couple of years that we were friends. You came to my house and we watched them play. I remember.
Oh my god, I remember.
Lee Wynn scored the winner or something. You were pissed.
I do remember this now. That was heartbreaking.
This is before I knew anything about soccer.
That's right. This was the game that hooked you.
So yeah, you will have beef with everybody. FCC just added their name to the list this year.
Well, no, FCC added it last year after we scored. Lewis Morgan hurt himself on the celebration, and then they put Dylan Nealis in for him, shredded him twice, and then we lost 2-1. Not fun.
No, it's first round of the play. I don't know. I guess this year felt more personal.
This year sucked. One, because I was there, and two, the loss was like heartbreakingly epic.
Well, so that and all the controversy with Miazga and stuff too.
Yeah, well, that and the fact that they're enemies of the pod, right up there in enemy land. Yeah, we will do an episode before we continue this waffle. We will do an episode on the top. Let me see. We're 14 years in a row, so the top 14 Red Bull playoff exits. We might have to extend it all the way back for, I think
we're ranking all Red Bull playoff exits.
Yeah, we'll have to call in like Mark Fishkin or something to do a good list with us. But all right, we won't keep anybody here any longer. Thanks everybody for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you follow us wherever you get your podcasts. When our next episodes go live, including episode 200 with a very special guest. Make sure you're following us on all forms of social media so you can interact with us. We were interacting on YouTube today with some comments of people who were agreeing with our takes. Wild, I know.
That is pretty wild.
Yeah, somebody from Portland was like, you guys were spot on. I was like, heck yeah, we were. Love that. Go put a billboard up that says we were good, right?
Yeah, seriously. Can you tell your friends?
Yeah, please. Thanks so much for those, because those were great. Really, really enjoy interacting with you guys. So I hope you continue to do that. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, the Designated Players Podcast. Just go ahead and search that up. I got nothing else to add. I think this is going to be a fun couple of weeks. And again, with no international break, with single elimination, people are going to be reinvested into it. So should be a good time. Thanks everybody for listening, and we will see you next time on the next episode of the Designated Players Podcast. See ya.